Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next The Rise of Kyoshi chapter analysis video. This one is going to be for chapter 10 of the book, and this one's called The Spirit. So I've been hyping up this chapter for a while, so you may be wondering, like, what happens in this chapter that makes it so good and interesting? So it's on the longer side, nowhere near as long as the iceberg, but longer than a lot of the other chapters. And the reason it's so eventful is because this is the chapter that really takes the story in a different direction. Like, the results of this chapter mean that the nature of the story goes somewhere else because of the actions of certain characters in this chapter. So, a brief summary of this chapter, where to even begin. So yes, Yun and Kyoshi are going with Jianzhu on this fun trip apparently. So they head off on Kelsang's bison. Kelsang is still injured from the battle on the iceberg. So Jianzhu takes Peng Peng and brings the two teens off to, as he basically says, spiritually find out which one of them is the Avatar. So he brings them to this location in the Zishan mountain range, the side of the cliff. It's this kind of weird location. He says it's like a locus of earthen spiritual energy, and basically tells them to meditate there. Now what happens is that he basically poisons them so that they won't move, so that they're just kind of stuck there meditating, and then he calls out a spirit. And there's this spirit, it's called Father Glowworm, and basically Kelsang asks, Jianzhu asks the spirit to tell him which of these two children is the Avatar. There's clearly some sort of a deal that you have to do to communicate with Father Glowworm, and he says, like, his price is blood basically, and so basically he checks the blood of both Yun and also Kyoshi, and he determines, finally announces within this book, the girl Kyoshi is the Avatar. And it changes because of this moment here. The payment to the spirit is actually that he just fully wants a full human. So the second this happens, basically Jianzhu lets Father Glowworm take Yun. Since he's not the Avatar, he lets the spirit take Yun sort of as payment. And he actually saves Kyoshi from also getting taken by the spirit. The spirit kind of goes a little mad, and there's this kind of implication that there's a deeper history with like previous avatars and Father Glowworm, so there's a sense of almost revenge. So Jianzhu has to actually save Kyoshi from Father Glowworm. But the second she gets back up, she realizes what Jianzhu has just done. He has basically just killed Yun. He knew going into this, check, that would be what happens to whoever wasn't found out to be the Avatar. And this is when she firebends for the first time. She is so angry at Jianzhu that she attacks him, and the first ever firebending she does is basically breathing fire out of her mouth. The idea is like she screams fire. We then get this fight scene between Kyoshi and Jianzhu. She doesn't go Avatar state yet. The fight scene that takes place is basically the definition of Kyoshi being outmatched. We know she's not a trained bender yet, and as much as she has her anger and passion here, she's only throwing very simple, big earth attacks at him, and he is an expert. He's dodging all of them, he's countering her bending, he's in complete control, and he doesn't seem at all remorseful of what he had to do. He basically reveals he didn't care about Yun that much. It was more of a one-sided relationship. Yun felt that Jianzhu was the father figure, it wasn't really felt the other way around. And so he's basically just like, oh, Kyoshi, you're the Avatar now, let's get back to training. And Kyoshi just cannot, accept this, that she is never going to trust him again. And it's kind of Jianzhu just realizing, like, okay, like I've sort of messed up my relationship with Kyoshi, it can't be this way. And he's trying everything he can to try and get her to calm down and kind of see that he just did this so that the world could have its Avatar back, and Yun was just this unfortunate sacrifice. Again, he's not acknowledging that he basically killed Yun, but that's how far Jianzhu has fallen in all of this. So with Kyoshi, out of breath on the ground, unable to touch Jianzhu, this is when Kelsang arrives. Kelsang arrives to help Kyoshi. He'd found out that they left all alone. He wasn't told about this expedition. No one else was, so Jianzhu was very secretive about going out here. Jianzhu follows them out here. Of course, he's injured from the previous battle on the iceberg, and the fact that he had to go there on his glider the entire way has kind of further opened up his wound. So he's not in the best position at all, and this is where we really get these, I suppose, full-on falling out of these two in terms of, like, yes, their relationship will never be healed because of what's happened here. Jianzhu tries once more again to sort of put on a different spin on things now that Kelsang is here, but he understands what's just happened. He sees how Kelsang sees how emotional Kyoshi is during all of this, and he completely sides with her. And so Kelsang steps up to defend Kyoshi against Jianzhu, the two best friends from before, Kuruk's companions, about to have this bending showdown. And you think it's going to be this epic battle, but it's not. It happens super quickly. Jianzhu attacks with a big blast of air. Kelsang attacks with a big blast of air. Jianzhu counters that with earthbending, and then just one quick movement gets a tiny little bit of earth, tears it off what he's just made, and just sticks it straight in the side of Kelsang's neck. Kills him immediately. Kelsang has just been killed here. And this is what causes Kyoshi to go into the Avatar state. And that's the end of the chapter. She goes to Avatar state, the glow comes on. It seems like Jianzhu is just in a terrible position here, but we'll see what happens. It's an incredibly eventful chapter that obviously results in the death of Yun, but also the death of Kelsang, and also it means that Kyoshi now is in this really bad position. Like, obviously we have to see going forward, like, how will she kill Jianzhu here, or will he be resourceful enough to get out of this? Now, they do set up earlier on in the chapter that he has experience. He sort of saw Kuruk training in the Avatar state and was able to sort of see and sort of save everyone from that. So he has experience knowing how to sort of keep himself safe, even considering the power of the Avatar state. So he's realistically going to make it out of this. But then Kyoshi's sort of on her own, because the entire structure around training the Avatar is controlled by Jianzhu, because, as he explained to us before, as he explained to Kyoshi directly, all the main masters in the world, everyone, he is the one who has the relationship with them. And if she's trying to train without him because she hates him so much, that's not going to happen, because anyone with a connection is going to tell Jianzhu. He's going to know where she is, and she's not going to want that. How does she get her training now that she is the Avatar, now that she knows 100% for sure? And just what's her mindset like in the aftermath of this? That is the strength of this chapter in terms of changing the dynamic. She's going to have to go off on her own and find her own teachers who aren't the obvious sort of noble benders that we know about. And who are they going to be? And it's going to cause her to have to reconnect with her past. There's a reason they've been setting up the idea of the Dao Fei so much. That's where it's going to have to be. So that is the main setup from all of this. So let's get into any interesting details that we get. So, like I said there at the very start of the book, on their way there, before everything kicks off, it's still friendly. Yun is like, oh, are we going here to practice the Avatar state? And Jianzhu is like, no, we're not going to do that. That's way too dangerous. They say here, the first time Kuruk practiced entering the Avatar state, we went to a small uninhabited atoll where we wouldn't get hurt. After his eyes stopped glowing and he came down from floating 20 feet in the air inside a sphere of water, the island wasn't there anymore. The rest of us survived by the skin of our teeth, so we're not triggering the Avatar state. And yet we very quickly, the first part of this in terms of like leading up to the death of Yun happens all very quickly in terms of they arrive at the mountain, they immediately get down to the meditation, and they seem to put out the idea like, oh, he just puts down this incense there because it's spiritual, but it actually turns out to be a poison to keep them there and keep them from moving so that the spirit can like assess them. And what's interesting here is when the spirit actually comes out is obviously, Jianzhu knows this spirit, knows it by name, that it's Father Glowworm. But the spirit also talks to Jianzhu like he knows him and calls him Architect. He says, Father Glowworm says, Architect, it's been so long. What have you brought me? A question. And then he asks him, which one of you is the Avatar? And the spirit says, oh my, the physical world is in poor shape indeed. You do know I'll need their blood. And they talk later on about, like, you know what my price is. And clearly the implication is that the price for getting a question answered by Father Glowworm is a full human, basically. Because when they describe the way this spirit looks, which, yeah, it's this. The eye floating in the mountain was the size of a wagon wheel. It had sticky, luminescent tinge of green. A web of pulsating veins gripped it tightly from behind, giving the sphere an angry appearance, as if it would have burst under its own pressure. And then when it actually reaches out, basically, it's described as basically this, this goo with human teeth inside it. And that's what actually... that's what actually like attaches onto them and sucks out some of their blood to check which one of them is the Avatar. And the reason this spirit is able to do that is because Jianzhu explains that I've read Kuruk's private journals. You've tangled with many of the Avatar's past lives. I must have the unerring judgment of a great and ancient spirit such as yourself. So the connection of him with the previous Avatars, I suppose, means he has a familiarity with them, with the idea that he actually had an incident with them. Because he explains later on, what is it here? I couldn't risk you taking your revenge on Kuruk's reincarnation. You had your blood, Father Glowworm. Your price has been paid. And obviously the Glowworm tries to like take Kyoshi as well by saying like I'm raising it. So clearly in the past Glowworm had an incident with a previous Avatar and now wants revenge for that. So that's an interesting one in terms of like what actually happened there. And now I think Father Glowworm is a character who's going to come back into things at some point. I can't see it just being not referenced at all. I think something about what happened here will come back because obviously what happens here isn't as simple as it seems. Because the thing with Yun and his quote-unquote death is that you don't see the body. The idea is that, oh, he's clearly a spirit who wants to take and consume a full human, but all he does is he takes Yun. And it's dramatic enough that like Kyoshi's reaction as well as Jianzhu's reaction is that as far as they're concerned, he's been taken, he is gone, he is dead. This spirit, ancient spirit, has just taken him. There's no way he's going to survive what happens here. So, you know, when what happens with Yun later, like it's such a surprise because you think like, okay, they didn't show the body. That's the typical thing in any story. Like you have to get confirmation that a character died. Of like with Kelsang's death, and we'll get to the description of it. It's very clear he's dead, but with Yun's, it's more of just a reaction of the other characters to it more than anything. But anyway, yeah. So the arrival of Father Glowworm, he checks Kyoshi's the Avatar with their blood, and he says she's the Avatar. The next bit is very, very interesting. So, Kyoshi and Yun were looking each other in the eye when it happened. When she saw Yun's spirit break inside him, he'd been lying to her with his body and his smile and his words this whole time. He thought it was him, truly and utterly. He'd never once entertained the notion that it might not be him. Any kindness and warmth he'd shown to Kyoshi since the iceberg hadn't been sign of his acceptance. They'd been layers of armor that he'd furiously assembled to protect himself, and that armor had failed. Piece by piece, Kyoshi saw the only Yun she'd ever known, the boy who was the Avatar, slough and flake into nothingness. His mantle had been stripped from his shoulders, and the shape underneath was merely wind. He let go of her. So there is this extra element to it of like, yes, Jianzhu was the one who caused this incident and, you know, basically fed the two of them to Father Glowworm and let Yun die. But in the middle of all of this, like, Kyoshi is holding on to Yun before he's dragged away by Father Glowworm. Yun specifically lets go of Kyoshi. That's specifically what happens. Because the reveal that Kyoshi is the Avatar hits him hard, and it's revealed that basically his niceness back towards Kyoshi in the previous chapter was more of this kind of armor of like, okay, there's some doubt about me being the Avatar. It might be Kyoshi because she did some awesome earthbending. It realistically still is me, but I'm not going to be annoyed at her because of that. And then the second he finds out that, oh, it is her and it's not me, you see the moment of he devoted his everything to being the Avatar. That was him. He doesn't want to go back to the way things were. It breaks him, and he lets go. He accepts whatever's about to happen to him, and he accepts, basically being killed by this spirit. And it sort of, I think, in a way informs kind of what's going to happen later on with Yoon. And I'm very interested to discuss that. Obviously, it's right towards the end of the book, but we'll get there. But it's important to note the specifics of what happens here. He didn't attempt to save himself, like, in any way. Admittedly, Kyoshi and Yoon were still kind of under the effects of the poison here, though they were both sort of breaking out of it. That's the way the things happened. So it's very, very interesting, definitely. That's when she then screams fire and attacks Jianzhu. And yeah, his reaction is interesting. He constantly tries to be like, oh, this could have been avoided if you had just shown that you were the Avatar beforehand. He's so casual with her throughout this fight, showing the gulf in class between them, that here's an untrained earthbender with good power but no skill versus one of the most skilled and legendary earthbenders in the world at this point in time. It's no match whatsoever. He even taunts her, I have to teach you to do more than simply go big. What else? And he tries to say, you're the Avatar, don't you know what that means, the responsibility that you have now? I'm not a fool, and neither are you. We're not going to pretend you'll ever truly forgive me for what happened here. What I'm asking you to do is weigh our loss against the future of the world. Don't let Yoon's sacrifice be in vain. Embrace your duty and let me teach you. And this just makes her more and more angry, the idea that, like, he's trying to frame feeding Yoon to this spirit as, like, Yoon sacrificing himself to allow this to happen, and that this is a loss that, like, Jianzhu was really feeling, when this is so, like, from Kyoshi's point of view, like, this is someone who, literally the previous chapter, Yoon just told him that effectively, Jianzhu is the Kelsang equivalent for him. Like, Kelsang is the dearest person in the world to Kyoshi. It's the same with Jianzhu and Yoon. That's what it is, but it obviously isn't in reverse. Jianzhu never thought of Yoon as a sort of son in any real way, just that he was the Avatar. That's all that was really cared about. So very, very interesting. And yeah, he then does the thing of, like, basically covering her hands in earth, and you're basically having her completely under his control with the earth, having her, like, bow before him and stuff like that. So much wasted time. I could have thought you sooner if I only hadn't been distracted by that little swindler. So he's even insulting Yoon. That's how much he doesn't care about him. And this just makes Kyoshi more and more angry. How could you say that? He worshipped you and you used him. And he says here, let me give you a lesson, the same one I gave Yoon. Out there is an entire nation crammed full of corrupt, incompetent people who will try to use the Avatar for their own purposes. Buffoons who call themselves sages, when all it takes in the Earth Kingdom is having the right connections and paying enough gold to plaster such a title on your brow. Without my influence, you turn into nothing more than a traveling peddler of favors, flopping here and there with your decisions, squandering your authority on petty boons and handouts. You'll end up a living party trick, a bender who can shoot water and breathe fire and spit useless advice, a girl who paints the walls with a pretty color while the house rots at its foundations. I've dedicated my life to making sure the next Avatar won't be used in such a manner, and despite your every attempt to fight me, I will dedicate my life to you, Kyoshi. And I think that's very interesting, just that, like, he's still trying to be like, if you just calm down and let me guide you, get over your hatred of me for what I've done there, I'll make sure that you as the Avatar are used in the correct way. That's what he's trying to get at. That is the ideal for him, that for him comes above all else, because for him the world is the way it is because it has an Avatar. So he'll do anything and accept any situation, no matter how awkward it is, once the Avatar can be there sort of at his side, I suppose, to do what's needed. But of course, with Kyoshi, what she's just seen him do, this can never be the case. She will never be the Yoon, the kind of new Yoon, basically, knowing what he's truly like. So that's the big thing, and it's about this point when Kelsang arrives and reveals that he kind of, he read Jianzhu's journal. He broke into his room and read it, and that's how he got here. So the betrayal of the two friends and stuff like that. It's an interesting one in that the whole time the setup here is just like, I suppose one of the best ways to describe it is it feels a little like Obi-Wan and Anakin type thing of just like that's how close these two characters are, and they're, that a battle is about to happen, and it's just the conversation beforehand of just, you betrayed me, like you've fallen too far here, the things that they say to each other, there's no going back here. And then the second the battle starts, you think it's going to be a big one, but it's not. One of the last big things that is said here is like, Kelsang says to him, "You are no longer fit to serve the Avatar." And Jianzhu's response is, "Where will you go? Where the air temples, the abbots will hand you back to me before you can finish telling your story. Have you forgotten how far you've fallen in disgrace with them? Didn't Tagaka jog your memory? I know everyone in the four nations who could possibly help you. I put out the message, and every lawman, every sage, every official will be tripping over their own feet to hunt you down on my behalf. Being the Avatar will not protect her from me." And that is the final thing. That is the big setup moment of just Kyoshi going on from here. She won't be able to train as the Avatar in the usual way because of how deep Jianzhu's connections run. But anyway, here's the fight. Again, it's just the final page of the chapter. He pushed her away and leapt at Jianzhu, bringing his staff down to create a gale of wind. Jianzhu brought up earth to meet him, but they weren't fighting the same fight. Kelsang meant to blast his friend away, to knock the madness out of him, to overwhelm him with the least amount of harm done in the way of the air nomads. Jianzhu shaved off a razor of flint no longer than an inch, sharp and thin enough to pass through the wind without resistance, and slice it where his victim was exposed and vulnerable. Then there's a scene cut. A spurt of blood came from the side of Kelsang's neck, from a finger-length cut so clean and precise it was almost elegant. Jianzhu's expression flickered with a sadness that was deeper and truer than what he'd given to Yun as he watched his friend fall. Kelsang collapsed to the ground, his head bouncing lifelessly off the hard-packed earth. Those were the last things Kyoshi saw before the white glow behind her eyes took over her entire being. End of chapter. Like, what a way to end a chapter. And yeah, the brutality of that, of like, we've rarely seen something like that. Like, I think it's a very well done fight scene in that you think it's going to be this big monumental battle, but it's simple. And it's the difference in style of like Jianzhu trying to do these big attacks and just like basically have the fight, Kelsang trying to have the fight go slowly and like just keep hitting away at him, trying to keep the conversation going, convince him that he's wrong about this, get him back on track and not really hurt him. Jianzhu goes straight for the kill. And that's the difference in all of this. And it shows that a deadly form of earthbending, of not going for big, not going for power, but going for subtlety and technique and cleverness of how do you get through an airbender's defenses. You basically create an earth like aerodynamic pointy projectile that will go through the wind no matter how kind of powerful it is, and that's exactly what he does. He creates a razor of flint about the size of an inch, and it's sharp and thin that it just goes straight through the wind because of how aerodynamic it is. And Kelsang's defenses are no match, and just immediately straight through the neck, Kelsang's dead. Just one shot. And just the description of, he collapsed to the ground, head bouncing lifelessly off the hard-packed earth. So lifelessly, he's dead. And the reaction of this instant kill is Kyoshi activating the Avatar state. And it makes complete sense because this is the person closest to her. This is why it should activate for her. And it's kind of one of those things of like, it didn't quite activate, but it was close. The fire came out when Yoon was taken. This is what happens when Kelsang was actually killed. And I think all that, the emotional beats of that work so well. Of Jianzhu can never come back from what he's just done, sacrificing the person who basically looked up to him as a father figure, the person who was training the previous Avatar. and then killing his best friend. These actions like are just so wrong and dark, and you don't expect an Avatar thing to go that much, that heavy. In that, like, we've rarely seen something like that. Like, you know, Zahir killing the queen, how Pali was killed in that fight. There are some of the more kind of brutal deaths we've seen in the series up to now, but that I think was right up there of just, you know, like a spike of earth to the side of the neck. That's a pretty brutal thing. Apparently Yoon being taken out by a spirit, you know, things like that. That shows you the kind of maturity level and just how huge that chapter was in terms of changing and being unexpected, and that killing off a main character like that. Kelsang's gone, Yoon gone. That's two of like your main 5 or 6 characters just out of action for the book. That's big that they were able to do that and have it all work and hit home correctly. And Jianzhu as a villain, like, he is now made fully into that villain, into that antagonist, the enemy that Kyoshi has to take down, the character who I suppose her sense of justice is going to be formed up against. Of she wants nothing but revenge and to kill him basically. And what is her approach going to be like throughout her life with regards to her training to get to that point? Is it just going to be training to kill him, or will her sense of justice be kind of develop more beyond just that? And that's what we're going to see as we go forward, and I think that's so well done. Along with the fact that now it means we have 2 sides of the story, because we're not just going to leave Jianzhu and just focus on Kyoshi and her side of things going forward. We are going to get a couple of chapters as the book goes on, focusing on Jianzhu and his search for Kyoshi. And I suppose he's already gone too far, but like, how much of this is going to keep a secret about what's happened? How far more is he going to go to keep those secrets? And what lengths is he going to go through to get Kyoshi back and on his side? How many more crimes will he commit, and to add to that sort of tainted legacy? And you see a very sort of human side of him in a way, as just he lets what is just a couple of mistakes just spiral out of control and just add on to them and add on to them, to where by the end of the book he's just, you know, he's just lost complete control of the situation. And that's what makes him such a good villain. I think he's one of the best characters in the book, because you get that side of him. He's more like those kind of Red Lotus villains, where they have their flaws, but you also understand where they're coming from, because he continues to say it even after Yoon is gone, that I just want the Avatar to be used in the right way. Anyone else will use the Avatar the wrong way. I have the right way to do it. I know it because I know what not to do because of Karuk and how to fix that. And that's all he's about, and that's all he's like devoted himself to. And he still wants to devote himself to the Avatar, but how can he? The personal loyalty is now gone between him and Kyoshi, and he doesn't quite realize that, and that's his sort of flaw as a villain. But yeah, that's my thoughts on chapter 10, The Spirit, in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are on this chapter. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.